I don't normally walk this way. My usual route after work is quick, down Maple, past the park, and then cut through Elm Street. It's muscle memory at this point. But that day, I couldn't bring myself to go home so fast. It had been one of those days where everything seemed determined to irritate me. Emails from my boss flagged as urgent when they clearly weren't. My phone buzzing every 5 minutes with reminder notifications I'd already snoozed twice. A neighbor on my block hammering away at something metal for hours, like he was trying to rebuild a Titanic in his backyard. By the time I clocked out, my head was buzzing, not with thoughts, but with noise, the kind that makes you feel like your skin doesn't fit right. So I decided to take the long way. It had been weeks since I'd gone past Anna's place. She lives just 3 streets over, in a neat little one-story with flower boxes on the front windows and a wind chime that sounds like soft rain when the breeze hits it. She's 27, my firstborn, my stubborn one. She married Ben about 5 years ago. A man who, on paper, is everything a father could want for his daughter. Stable job, clean-cut, good at small talk, and yet something about him has never sat right with me. It's hard to explain. He's charming in a way that feels performed, like he's wearing a mask he doesn't take off, even when he thinks no one's looking. He talks a lot about himself, but somehow makes it sound like he's complimenting you. When he shakes your hand, he squeezes just hard enough to make you feel like you should squeeze back harder. Anna insists he treats her well. Dad, he's just confident. She'd laugh whenever I raise an eyebrow. I stop bringing it up. She's an adult. My son, Jake, is 25, lives across town in a rented duplex with a roommate he's known since high school. Jake's quieter. He notices things. The kind of person who will sit in a conversation for 10 minutes without speaking, then ask one question that cuts straight to the point. He and Anna have always had that sibling connection where they can talk in half sentences and still understand each other. They get along, but they're not the drop by unannounced kind of siblings, which is why, when I turned the corner and saw Jake's car parked in Anna's driveway, my steps slowed. The car itself isn't anything fancy, an older model sedan with a dent in the back bumper from where someone backed into him in a parking lot 2 years ago. But seeing it there at that hour on a weekday, it stood out. Jake should have been at work. I told myself not to read too much into it. Maybe he took the day off. Maybe Anna needed help with something. But then I noticed the blinds. Anna's blinds are always open during the day. Always. She loves natural light, says it makes the place feel alive. Even in winter, the curtains are drawn back, so the pale sunlight can spill in. Today, closed. Curtains drawn tight like the house was bracing for a storm. And yet, the lights inside were on. A prickle of unease crawled up my spine. I kept walking, telling myself it wasn't my business. But as I passed the front steps, I heard voices. My son's voice. It was sharp, low, tense. The kind of tone you use when you're trying to stay calm, but anger is pushing at the edges. Then I heard Anna's voice, quieter, shaky, like she was trying not to cry. I froze mid-step. I couldn't make out every word, but the pieces I caught twisted my stomach. Jake, you can't find out, Anna. If Ben knows what you did. Anna, I didn't mean for it to happen, Jake. It just... A loud thud followed, like something heavy had been set down on the table. I edged closer to the siding, trying to catch more. Jake, you have to end it before it gets worse. Anna, I can't. It's not just me anymore. My heart thudded hard against my ribs. Not just her anymore? What the hell did that mean? I thought about knocking, pretending I was just out for a stroll, but something in me held back. It was the same instinct you get when you're watching a wildlife documentary and the camera zooms in on a lion stalking something. Every muscle in you knows to stay still. And then came the line that made my blood run cold. Jake, if Dad finds out, we're all screwed. Dad, as in me, my mouth went dry. I stepped back, and my foot landed on a dead leaf. The crunch sounded like a gunshot in the silence. Inside, the voices stopped. For a moment, I stood there, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Then panic surged. I walked. Too fast to be casual, too slow to look like I was running. Until I turned the corner and was out of sight. The rest of my walk home was a blur. My mind was a storm. What could they possibly be hiding from Ben? Why would it involve me? Why did Jake sound so urgent? By the time I got to my front door, I'd thought a dozen possibilities, each worse than the last. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every car that passed made me think someone was pulling into my driveway. At 2:14 a.m., I sat up in the dark, heart racing for no reason. I kept replaying Anna's voice in my head, trembling, defensive. Jake's, low and steady, like he was holding something back. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I was going to get answers. 2. The next morning, I couldn't shake it. The conversation I overheard at Anna's wasn't just replaying in my head. It was mutating. Every time I thought about it, I remembered it slightly differently. In one version, Anna's voice cracked sooner. In another, Jake's tone sounded sharper. My brain was picking apart every syllable like it was evidence in some unsolved crime. Before I could even figure out what to do next, I realized I needed to rewind, to think about how we'd even gotten here. Anna was my first. From the day she was born, she had this stubborn streak. Even as a toddler, she'd push my hand away if she thought she could walk without help. She wasn't reckless, just determined. She did well in school, had plenty of friends, but she was fiercely independent. By her early 20s, she was working full-time, saving for her own place, barely asking me for anything. Then she met Ben. She brought him to a Sunday dinner one summer. He was wearing a crisp button-down shirt and a smile that seemed practiced. His handshake was firm, too firm. I remember thinking, this guy has read too many How to Make a Good Impression articles online. At dinner, he told story after story, mostly about himself, his job, his fitness routine. A time he hustled his way into a promotion. He asked questions, sure, but they felt like prompts to get you to ask him something in return. Anna, though, looked at him like he hung the moon. I didn't say anything. I've always tried not to meddle in my kids' relationships unless I saw something truly dangerous. But I made a note to keep an eye on him. Over the next year, Ben became a regular fixture at family gatherings. He remembered birthdays, brought wine to dinner, laughed at my bad jokes. But sometimes I'd catch little flashes, moments where the mask slipped, like the time Anna burned a batch of cookies, and he said, "Well, at least you're pretty," with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Everyone else laughed. I didn't. Or when Jake was telling a story about a car repair gone wrong, and Ben interrupted to explain the right way to do it, except he was completely wrong, and Jake just let it slide. Little things, easy to dismiss in the moment, but they stuck with me. Jake, on the other hand, never really warmed to Ben. He was polite, sure, but he didn't go out his way to talk to him. I asked him about it once, and Jake just shrugged. He's fine, just not my kind of person. Jake has always been protective of Anna. When they were kids, he once got into a fistfight with a boy at the park because the kid called her bossy. Anna was 6, Jake was 4. He came home with a split lip and a grin like he'd won a championship. As adults, that protectiveness never went away. It just got quieter. Jake wouldn't insert himself unless he thought Anna was in real trouble, which is why hearing him sound so serious at her house the other day, yeah, that scared me. The wedding was nice, big enough to feel celebratory, small enough to still feel personal. Ben gave a charming speech about finding the person who makes you better, and Anna beamed like he'd hung the stars just for her. But at the reception, I overheard Ben talking to one of his friends about poker. He bragged about winning a big hand because the other guy was too stupid to know when to fold. The way he said it, it wasn't about the money. It was about winning, about making someone else lose. I remember thinking, I hope he never talks about Anna that way. In the years after they got married, I saw less of Anna, not in a worrying way at first. She was building her own life, working, making her house a home. We still had dinners, holidays, the occasional Sunday coffee. But every now and then, I'd notice small changes. She'd text less, cancel plans last minute, say she was too tired to come over. When she did visit, she seemed on edge, Not dramatically, so just a little jumpy. If her phone buzzed, she'd check it immediately. If Ben called, she'd take it in another room. Once, I asked her if everything was okay. She smiled and said, "Yeah, just busy." I wanted to believe her. Jake noticed too. One night, about a year ago, he came over for dinner without Anna. We were having a beer in the backyard when he said, "Do you ever get the feeling Anna's not telling us everything?" I asked him what he meant, and he just shrugged. Dunno, just a feeling. I told him I trusted Anna to tell me if something was wrong. He didn't argue, but the look on his face told me he didn't believe it. The last time I saw Ben before the walk was at a barbecue 2 months ago. He was in a great mood, too great, talking louder than usual, telling a story about winning $800 at a poker game the week before. Anna laughed along, but her smile was tight. At one point, she dropped a plate and flinched just slightly when Ben teased her about being clumsy. My stomach knotted. It was such a small thing, but it felt like watching a bird twitch when it hears a predator. Looking back now, I think the signs were there all along. I just didn't want to see them. Which brings me back to Jake's car in her driveway. The closed blinds, the tense voices, and those words, "If Dad finds out, we're all screwed." They weren't just keeping a secret from Ben. They were keeping it from me. That night, after replaying it all in my head again, I decided I couldn't just sit around waiting. The next day, I called Jake. The morning after my phone call to Jake, I felt like I'd stepped into some alternate reality where I was the only person who didn't know the rules. When Jake answered, his voice was careful, too careful. "Hey, Dad, everything all right?" I told him I was just checking in, seeing how he was doing. There was a pause, like he was deciding how much to say. "Yeah, fine. Busy. You know how it is. Busy." That was Anna's favorite excuse lately. I asked if he'd seen his sister recently. Another pause. "Yeah, I was over there yesterday." I felt my heartbeat pick up. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," he said again, but it was clipped final. Then he changed the subject. That week, I started noticing things I hadn't before. When I drove past Anna Street on my way to the store, the blinds were always closed. Her car was in the driveway, but Ben's was gone more often than not. And Jake's? It was there at least 3 more times over the next week. I decided to test the waters. I texted Anna one morning, "Coffee today?" My treat. She didn't respond until late afternoon. "Sorry, super busy today. Maybe next week." No smiley face. No love you. Just curt. I reached out to an old family friend, Lisa, who still talked to Anna from time to time. Over coffee, I asked casually if she'd seen much of Anna lately. Lisa hesitated. "Not much. She's been keeping to herself." Then she lowered her voice. "Last time we met up, she seemed tired, like emotionally tired. She said Ben's been stressed lately. Money stuff." Money. That lined up with the poker stories and the bragging. By now, I was running possibilities through my head like some kind of low-rent detective. Maybe Ben lost his job. Maybe he was gambling more than he let on. Maybe Jake was helping Anna figure out how to get out of debt. But then there was that line, "If Dad finds out, we're all screwed." That didn't sound like just money. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Anna. Her voice was shaky. "Dad, can you come over?" "Please." I grabbed my keys without asking questions. When I pulled into her driveway, Jake was pacing on the front porch. His jaw was tight, and he kept glancing at the street. Inside, Anna was sitting at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug, like it was the only thing keeping her together. I sat down across from her. "What's going on?" She took a deep breath, and then it came out in a rush. Ben had been gambling for years. Not just casual poker nights, but high-stakes games with people you didn't want to owe money to. He'd drained their savings, maxed out credit cards in her name, even taken out a personal loan without telling her. And when she confronted him, he'd turned it around on her, told her she was overreacting, that she wouldn't survive without him. Then came the threats. Not physical. Not yet, but enough to make her scared to be alone with him when he was angry. She found out she was pregnant 2 months ago. That's when she called Jake. I sat there, trying to process everything at once: the money, the manipulation, the pregnancy. Jake said, "We've been trying to figure out a way to get her out before he finds out she's leaving." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "If he knows I've been talking to you, he'll—" She didn't finish. I took her hand. "You're not going back there. Not tonight. Not ever." Then I did something I've never done before. I called the police on my own son-in-law. The days that followed were a blur. Ben was arrested on outstanding warrants related to his gambling debts. Apparently, some of the people he'd played with were under investigation for other crimes, and his name was already on a list. Anna moved in with me. Jake helped her pack the essentials while Ben was in custody. At first, she was jumpy, flinching at every unexpected sound. But slowly, she started to relax. We spent quiet evenings together, no drama, no raised voices, just peace. When the baby came, I was in the delivery room, holding my granddaughter for the first time. I thought about all the ways that walk past Anna's house could have gone differently, if I hadn't stopped, if I hadn't overheard. Now, when I walk past, the blinds are open, the front door is painted a cheerful blue, and I know without a doubt that I was meant to be there that day.